Hello, for this week's assignment for the Just Do It project, I chose to look within my current place of employment, which is UCLA Health Laboratory. Within the laboratory, we receive blood samples, urine samples, stool samples, and occasionally we get CSF and bodily fluid samples. These samples are, very important, and they're irreplaceable, meaning that it took a procedure to get these samples from patients. It's usually a painful procedure done with a spinal tap. And so we want to make sure that we're taking the utmost care when we process these samples. The issue is that because these samples are not something that we receive on a daily basis, staff is very uncomfortable with how they should be processing these samples because we also receive them very different from patient to patient. This could mean we receive one cup or we receive 4 containers or even a bag of fluid. And then it's up to the staff to determine how we're processing these. So what I noticed was this big issue with, staff feeling uncomfortable with these samples. So I figured there has to be a way that we can streamline this process to make it easier for staff to get these samples processed in a timely manner. So what we did was we assembled a team of the team leaders within my shift as well as the supervisor on the shift, and we were brainstorming some ideas. Some of the team leads said, how about we just have the team leader on that day's shift be the one to process the samples. But we decided that would probably be not the best option because team leaders also deal with a lot of other issues throughout the day. We're constantly troubleshooting other samples, and it might take away from the other work that we have to do throughout the day. So we moved on to the next idea. And that was maybe the team leaders can, supervise or shadow the staff member who's holding on to a CSF sample so that we can kind of walk them through how to process it. And once again, we decided that that probably wouldn't be a good idea because there's so much on our current plate that, if we have to stop what we're doing every time one of these samples makes its way into the lab, we might not get our other tasks done for the day. So then I brought up the idea, what if we just create a flow chart system that's very direct, very straight to the point. It explains to the staff what to do when you receive, 1 cup of CSF versus what you do when you receive 4 vials. And that way the staff has it and they're able to process the samples in a timely manner. So ultimately, we all decided that that would be the best option. And, we began to work with not only our current lab, but also the other labs that we send out to, such as our microbiology lab, our cytology lab, that receive these samples from us once they make their way into our lab. And that way we can create a flow chart that, works for all departments and addresses the needs for every single department. So this took about 3.5 weeks. And after, a lot of emails back and forth, a lot of collaboration amongst the different departments, we were finally able to amend our SOPs, which is our standard operating procedures within the hospital laboratory. And we were able to implement the new way of processing CSF and fluid when it makes its way into the lab. So what this ultimately does, and what it ultimately did, was that it gave the staff the confidence they needed to, pick up these samples when they make their way into the lab, so that they're not scared that they're going to mess up an irreplaceable sample that is either going to be incapable of being collected or is going to be very difficult for the patient to come back and have another procedure done. So it eliminated that. Then we were able to eliminate the fear that, providers and doctors have when they send these samples to us, hoping that we're going to do what we need to do. So now, it puts the doctor's mind at ease. They know that when they deliver a sample to our department, we'll be able to get it done and get it processed in a timely manner. And then last and ultimately, it allowed for patients to receive the best patient care possible. It's not fair for a patient to undergo a procedure that's very difficult, such as a spinal tap, to get CSF fluid. And then, we don't process it properly within the laboratory and we lose sample. We don't have enough sample to run certain tests because of internal laboratory mistakes. And it's just a better situation for the patient so that they do not have to worry about returning, having another procedure done, and ultimately they have a better experience with our current healthcare. So that was probably the main goal that this flow chart provided. And here are some examples of the various additions to our SOP that were made. We have, actual flow charts that show what to do when you receive a certain number of fluids and the various ways that it can be processed. We also have, the ways that CSF can make its way into the lab, whether it be one container, 3 containers, 4 containers. And this allows for the staff to not only see images, visuals of, what we can do with the various types of body fluid and CSF that are received, but it explains to them, that it's not that hard. It's very simple as long as you follow these steps. And that did a lot to put their mind at ease.